Long before the rise of human civilizations, the Earth was a realm of extremes, a planet still experimenting with climates, landscapes, and life itself. Among these extremes were the prehistoric deserts, vast, unforgiving expanses where survival demanded ingenuity, resilience, and sometimes sheer luck. These were not the deserts of today, with their golden dunes and sparse wildlife, but nightmarish arenas shaped by volatile winds, scorching heat, and sudden torrential floods. In these worlds, life existed at the edge of extinction, struggling against environmental forces that were both brutal and mesmerizing. From towering sand seas that swallowed everything in their path, to salt flats that shimmered under merciless suns, prehistoric deserts were theatres of ecological drama, shaping evolution in ways that continue to echo in the species that survived. This exploration will take us deep into these harsh landscapes, revealing the creatures, the climatic catastrophes, and the relentless forces that carved some of Earth's most hauntingly beautiful yet deadly terrains. The sands before time. Millions of years ago, deserts were not the empty, sun-bleached spaces we imagine today. They were dynamic, violent, and unpredictable ecosystems, emerging as tectonic shifts, fractured supercontinents, and created vast interior basins isolated from moisture-bearing winds. These barren regions were shaped by unrelenting environmental forces, winds that could whip sand into clouds dense enough to obscure the sun, torrential floods that carved temporary riverbeds, and extremes of temperature that could kill within hours. The very surface of the Earth seemed to convulse with energy, forming sand, seas, and salt flats where life was tested to its most fragile limits. Life in these prehistoric deserts adapted in astonishing ways. Reptiles, some of the earliest vertebrates to colonize these harsh landscapes, evolved specialized scales and burrowing behaviors to escape the lethal daytime heat. Amphibians, in contrast, sought refuge in underground water sources, emerging only during the rare monsoon-like rains to feed and breed before retreating again. Even plants, often seen as passive bystanders, became masters of survival, with roots that reached deep beneath the surface to tap hidden aquifers and leaves, designed to minimize water loss while withstanding relentless sunlight. Every organism was engaged in a daily negotiation with the desert, balancing hunger, hydration, and predation against the unforgiving environment itself. Sand was both a creator and a destroyer. Towering dunes rose and fell with the whims of the wind, sometimes swallowing entire ecosystems in waves of fine, scorching grains. Flash floods, though infrequent, were devastating, scouring riverbeds and sweeping away anything unprepared. Fossil records show that creatures that lived near these ephemeral waters faced constant peril. Some thrived by timing their life cycles to the brief wet seasons, while others developed armored bodies, nocturnal habits, or water-storing adaptations. In essence, the desert was an evolutionary forge, sculpting resilience and innovation through unrelenting pressure. Beneath the surface, life found hidden havens. Burrows allowed small reptiles and early mammals to escape the punishing heat of midday and the freezing chill of desert nights. Invertebrates, from primitive beetles to early scorpions, carved out ecological niches, taking advantage of decaying plant matter, hidden moisture, and the occasional carcass washed into their burrows. The soil itself became a living matrix, teeming with microorganisms that decomposed organic matter, recycled nutrients, and supported the fragile food webs that clung to existence. Even the very air was hostile, thick with abrasive dust that could strip moisture from exposed skin or gill membranes, yet life endured, demonstrating a resilience that would echo through millennia. The deserts of this era were also profoundly sculpted by water. Paradoxically, the very element that seemed most scarce. Intermittent rivers and shallow lakes appeared after storms, forming temporary oases that could sustain life for only weeks. These brief moments of abundance became epicenters of predation as creatures converged in desperate competition. Fossilized footprints in ancient mudflats capture these encounters, showing sudden clashes between predator and prey, moments frozen in time by the desert's fickle hand. In such environments, survival was both strategy and chance, and evolutionary pressures were immediate, brutal, and unforgiving. Predation itself adapted to the desert's rhythms. Some early reptiles developed extraordinary speed and agility to navigate shifting sands and escape sudden sandstorms. Others evolved camouflage, blending with the ochre hues of dunes and salt flats to ambush prey. Carnivorous arthropods, sometimes larger than the reptiles themselves, lurked beneath the sand, detecting vibrations and striking with deadly precision. This constant interplay between predator and prey defined the desert, pushing species toward remarkable specializations and creating ecological theaters where life and death danced in perpetual tension. Even the climate itself was an actor in this drama, unpredictable and extreme. Daytime temperatures could soar above 50 degrees Celsius, while nights plummeted below freezing, demanding thermal flexibility from every creature. Winds carried fine sand that could erode exposed surfaces, while sudden storms could bury entire areas in sediment, erasing tracks, nests, and burrows. The desert, in this sense, was not simply a backdrop, but a relentless sculptor, testing the ingenuity, adaptability, and endurance of every organism it encountered. Vegetation in these deserts was sparse, yet critical. Plants anchored loose sands with extensive root networks, provided shade and shelter, and acted as oases for smaller organisms. Their adaptations were extreme. Some developed thick, waxy coatings to prevent water loss. Others stored moisture in swollen stems or tubers, while others synchronized their reproductive cycles with rare rainfall, unleashing sudden blooms of flowers and seeds that would vanish as quickly as they appeared. Even these fleeting moments of green were the lifeblood of the desert, connecting organisms in intricate and delicate webs of survival. Over time, deserts became arenas of evolutionary innovation. Organisms developed complex social behaviors, from communal burrowing to cooperative hunting, as survival alone required ingenuity and collaboration. Fossilized evidence hints at early forms of parental care, protective strategies, and territoriality, all responses to the extreme pressures of life under the sun's unrelenting gaze. Every adaptation was a story of negotiation with the desert, a testament to life's capacity to endure, even in places where survival seemed improbable. The prehistoric deserts were far more than lifeless expanses of sand. They were crucibles of evolution, theatres of survival, and stages for some of the most remarkable biological experiments in Earth's history. The creatures that walked these landscapes swam in fleeting waters, or burrowed beneath the shifting sands, left traces that speak to the extraordinary interplay between life and environment. In this nightmarish world, survival was not guaranteed, and the story of the desert is the story of persistence, adaptation, and the relentless push of life to endure against overwhelming odds. Life on the edge of extremes. The prehistoric deserts were a theatre of extremes where every living creature existed on a knife's edge. Life in these lands was dictated not only by the relentless heat of the sun, but also by the scarcity of water and nutrients. Organisms were forced into a constant cycle of adaptation, evolution, and survival, with only the most resourceful enduring the relentless pressures of the environment. Early reptiles had developed thickened, scaly hides to retain moisture and reflect sunlight, while some amphibians evolved subterranean lifestyles, retreating into deep burrows that insulated them from both heat and desiccation. Plants, too, became extraordinary in their ingenuity, extending deep taproots to reach hidden aquifers, developing leaves with thick, waxy coatings, and producing seeds capable of remaining dormant for years until rare rainfall awakened them into a sudden burst of life. In this world, life was a negotiation with the elements, a relentless series of calculations that determined whether a species thrived or vanished. Water was the currency of survival, precious and unpredictable. Seasonal rivers carved fragile veins across the desert floor, filling shallow basins that became temporary havens for life. These short-lived oases transformed the desert into a place of frenetic activity, where predators and prey converged in desperate competition. Fossilized footprints in hardened mud tell stories of fleeting interactions, moments of struggle and predation frozen in stone. Organisms timed their life cycles to these rare events. Amphibians emerged in synchrony with the rains, hatchlings sprouted in temporary ponds, and herbivores migrated across parched plains to exploit the brief abundance of vegetation. Every drop of water dictated behavior, movement, and survival strategies, and the desert's harsh rhythms left no room for error. Temperature extremes were another relentless challenge. Daytime heat could rise above 50 degrees Celsius, baking the sands and forcing nocturnal lifestyles on many creatures. Nights, conversely, could plummet below freezing, turning the same desert into a frigid, inhospitable landscape. Organisms adapted in astonishing ways. Reptiles basked during brief morning hours, insects sought refuge beneath the sand, and burrowing mammals used thermal gradients underground to maintain stable body temperatures. Life in the desert was a continuous negotiation with heat and cold, where exposure could mean instant death and behavioral ingenuity became a matter of survival. Predation shaped life as much as the environment itself. Desert predators were swift, cunning, and adapted to the shifting sands. Early reptiles used ambush tactics, hiding beneath dunes and striking with lightning speed, while arthropods relied on vibration detection to sense prey hidden beneath the surface. Predators adapted to scarcity by expanding their diets, scavenging when hunting failed, and exploiting microhabitats invisible to less specialized species. Prey, in turn, evolved camouflage, rapid movement, and defensive structures such as spiny armor or burrowing behaviors. Every encounter was a duel with the environment as much as with other species, and survival depended on a complex blend of timing, strategy, and instinct. Vegetation in prehistoric deserts was deceptively resilient, forming the foundation for entire food webs. Sparse plants anchored shifting sands, preventing erosion and providing crucial shelter for smaller creatures. Some species developed thick leaves and water-storing stems, while others timed reproductive cycles with the desert's fleeting wet periods, releasing seeds in sudden bursts of fertility that would lie dormant until favorable conditions returned. These plants were ecological hubs, supporting insects, small vertebrates, and larger herbivores, and creating fragile networks of interdependence that linked organisms in ways that could collapse under environmental stress. The desert's scarcity of resources forged these intricate relationships, ensuring that survival required not only adaptation, but also precise ecological balance. Subterranean life was as complex as what unfolded above ground. Burrows became refuges not only for shelter, but for social organization, reproduction, and hunting strategies. Creatures living underground faced constant challenges, from oxygen limitation to predation by specialized predators capable of digging or detecting vibrations. Fossilized burrows suggest early communal behaviors, with multiple species sharing or competing for subterranean space. Underground ecosystems were microcosms of desert survival, shielded from the extremes above, but subject to their own perils, creating a layered, three-dimensional landscape of life, both visible and hidden from the casual observer. The interplay of wind and sand also had profound effects on life. Sandstorms could strip exposed tissues, erode surfaces, and bury vegetation, creating sudden changes in the desert environment. These events demanded flexibility and resilience. Animals adapted to seek shelter, and plants evolved structures to minimize damage or recover quickly after burial. Sediment deposits from these storms, later fossilized, preserve snapshots of life that allow modern scientists to reconstruct entire ecosystems, revealing the ingenuity and determination required to survive in a landscape that was constantly reshaping itself. Flash floods, though infrequent, were devastating forces that shaped both behavior and physiology. Sudden torrents could sweep away entire populations, leaving behind only traces of life in sedimentary deposits. Organisms responded through migration, burrowing, or developing water-resistant adaptations. Some reptiles and amphibians timed reproduction to avoid peak flooding, while herbivores moved seasonally to higher ground. These dramatic environmental pressures were not simply destructive, they were also creative forces, driving evolutionary innovation, shaping population structures, and influencing the very anatomy of desert-adapted species. Life in these deserts was an ongoing negotiation with scarcity, predation, and environmental extremes. Every behavior, adaptation, and survival strategy reflected a finely tuned response to conditions that could change in an instant. From nocturnal activity and burrowing to dietary flexibility and physiological adaptation, life was relentless, inventive, and highly specialized. Fossil records provide glimpses of these intricate strategies, showing how species overcame some of the harshest conditions on Earth and hinting at the remarkable evolutionary pathways forged in these unforgiving landscapes. The deserts of this era were not merely barren spaces, they were arenas of ingenuity, survival, and relentless evolutionary pressure. Every dune, riverbed, and salt flat was a stage where life was tested, forced to adapt, and continually challenged by forces far greater than itself. Fossils and sedimentary records preserve the stories of these ancient worlds, revealing ecosystems that were intricate, interconnected, and shaped by extremes. Life in prehistoric deserts existed in tension with every environmental factor, producing species that were uniquely equipped to endure, innovate, and thrive in ways that would influence evolution for millions of years. Predators of the burning sands. In the prehistoric deserts, survival was a daily gamble, and nowhere was this more apparent than in the realm of predators. The extreme scarcity of water and food made hunting a relentless necessity, and predators evolved with frightening specialization. Some early reptiles developed extraordinary agility, sprinting across loose sand with uncanny precision to chase prey that had learned to read the desert's subtle cues. Others became ambush specialists, hiding beneath dunes, salt flats, or sparse vegetation, waiting for hours or even days for a single opportunity to strike. Every aspect of their physiology, from muscular limbs to sensory organs, was honed for the harsh realities of a world where failure often meant death. Sandstorms created an unpredictable theatre for predation. Clouds of abrasive particles could blind and suffocate smaller animals, forcing them to seek shelter, while larger predators used the storms to their advantage. Buried prey could be detected through vibrations in the shifting sands, and some arthropods adapted specialized organs to sense minute tremors. Predators were not only surviving the desert, they were exploiting it, turning environmental hazards into tools of hunting. Fossil evidence shows extraordinary adaptations, including reinforced skulls for burrowing, elongated limbs for sprinting, and claw structures designed for both grasping prey and navigating unstable dunes. Predatory behavior was closely intertwined with water scarcity. Seasonal ponds became deadly arenas where ambush predators lurked beneath the shallow surface, waiting for herbivores and amphibians drawn by thirst. Some reptiles developed partial amphibious abilities, capable of swimming through ephemeral waters to reach prey or avoid competition. The fleeting nature of these water sources meant that timing, patience, and acute environmental awareness were essential. Prey species, in turn, evolved countermeasures: nocturnal activity patterns, rapid breeding cycles, and camouflage designed to evade both predator and the harsh glare of the desert sun. Every interaction was a finely tuned balance between life and death. Invertebrate predators thrived alongside their vertebrate counterparts, often playing roles just as crucial in shaping the desert ecosystem. Primitive scorpions, beetles, and centipedes developed defensive exoskeletons and predatory strategies perfectly suited to arid landscapes. Some could survive months without water, using stored bodily fluids and low metabolic rates to endure scarcity. Their hunting techniques, often involving subterranean ambush or chemical detection of prey, were both effective and terrifying. Fossils reveal that these arthropods could reach remarkable sizes, a testament to the evolutionary pressures that allowed survival in a desert dominated by extreme conditions. The deserts themselves dictated hunting strategies. Shifting dunes, unstable salt flats, and sudden drop-offs created natural traps and channels, shaping predator-prey dynamics. Early predators learned to anticipate the movement patterns of prey based on these environmental features, exploiting sand ridges, rock outcrops, and intermittent vegetation. Fossilized tracks preserved in sedimentary layers tell stories of long chases, sudden strikes, and the constant tension between hunter and hunted. Each interaction, preserved in stone, reveals a complex dance where behavior, adaptation, and environment were inseparable. Heat posed another challenge and tool for predators alike. By day, the blistering temperatures forced many creatures underground or into shaded crevices, concentrating potential prey into predictable areas. Nocturnal predators took advantage of these predictable movements, emerging under the cover of night when cooler temperatures allowed for hunting and exploration. Some predators evolved thermoregulatory adaptations, enabling them to remain active during parts of the day that other species could not withstand. In the desert, temperature was both enemy and ally, shaping every strategy and every evolutionary adaptation. Large predators were often apex hunters in an unforgiving environment. Their success depended not only on strength and speed, but on intelligence and strategy. Fossilized remains suggest social behaviors in certain species, hinting at cooperative hunting or territory defense to maximize the limited resources available. Their prey, in response, evolved collective strategies as well, herding, burrow sharing, and alert systems based on environmental cues. Even in a world defined by scarcity, the interplay between predator and prey created complex networks of adaptation and survival. Camouflage and mimicry were essential survival tools. Some predators evolved coloration that mirrored the ochre and rust tones of sand and rock, while others developed patterns that disrupted their outline against shifting dunes. Prey species followed similar strategies, blending seamlessly with vegetation, salt flats, or rocks to avoid detection. Survival often depended on split-second decisions, keen perception, and the ability to predict the unpredictable. Fossilized remains hint at these strategies through skeletal morphology, coloration inferred from mineralization, and preserved evidence of hunting scars and predation attempts. The constant struggle for survival pushed evolution in remarkable directions. Sensory organs became highly refined. Metabolic adaptations allowed endurance in conditions lethal to other species, and behavioral innovations arose in response to every environmental pressure. Fossilized evidence of limb structure, skull shape, and dental morphology reflects these pressures, showing that every predator and prey species was a unique solution to the extreme desert environment. In many cases, survival strategies were multi-layered, combining physical adaptation, behavior, and environmental intelligence. The nightmarish deserts were not only a stage for predation but also a crucible of evolutionary experimentation. Apex predators, mid-tier hunters, and scavengers coexisted in delicate balances, creating food webs that were both intricate and precarious. Environmental pressures, from extreme heat and sandstorms to intermittent water sources, shaped not just individual species, but entire ecosystems. The interplay between predator, prey, and the desert itself defined life in these ancient worlds, producing species capable of extraordinary resilience, cunning, and adaptability. The hidden world beneath the dunes. Beneath the seemingly barren surface of prehistoric deserts, a hidden world thrived in darkness and secrecy. While the sun blistered the surface, heat and drought creating an environment hostile to most life, underground ecosystems provided refuge for countless species. Burrows, tunnels, and subterranean chambers were not merely shelters. They were arenas of survival, reproduction, and predation. Fossilized burrows reveal complex networks, sometimes shared by multiple species, where life existed in constant negotiation with the pressures of soil, temperature, and the occasional intrusion of predators. Small reptiles, early mammals, and invertebrates adapted remarkable behaviors to survive in this underground world. Burrowing provided insulation against the scorching heat of day and the freezing temperatures of night, and many species developed specialized limbs for digging and maneuvering through tight tunnels. Respiratory adaptations allowed them to breathe efficiently in oxygen-limited spaces, while sensory organs became highly attuned to vibrations and chemical signals, detecting predators or prey in complete darkness. Life underground required constant vigilance, a complex understanding of environmental cues, and remarkable physiological adaptations. Invertebrates played a central role in subterranean ecosystems. Large, prehistoric scorpions, centipedes, and beetles carved out niches beneath the sand, hunting, scavenging, and competing for limited resources. Some species were equipped with powerful claws for digging, while others relied on highly sensitive sensory appendages to detect the faintest movements above or below. These underground predators were both efficient and resilient, thriving where surface predators could not, and creating microhabitats in which smaller creatures could exist in relative safety. Fossilized exoskeletons reveal a diversity and size that rivaled many surface-dwelling species, illustrating the adaptability of life under extreme conditions. Plants, though sparse on the surface, influence subterranean life as well. Roots provided both structural stability to the soil and a source of moisture for underground inhabitants. In some areas, root networks created corridors of softer soil, allowing easier burrowing and serving as conduits for nutrients. Certain plants released chemicals into the soil that influenced microbial populations, indirectly shaping the food web below ground. In this way, surface vegetation and underground ecosystems were intricately connected, and survival depended on an awareness of these hidden relationships. Water was a scarce but essential resource underground. Small aquifers and pockets of moisture sustained life in regions where surface water was ephemeral or non-existent. Many burrowing species timed their activity to access these hidden reserves, emerging briefly to feed or reproduce before retreating to safety. Fossil evidence suggests that some amphibians and reptiles evolved specialized storage organs to hold water for extended periods, demonstrating remarkable ingenuity in a landscape defined by scarcity. Even the smallest droplets became a lifeline in these subterranean habitats. Temperature gradients underground also shaped life. Burrows allowed organisms to escape the searing heat of the day and the bitter cold of night. But these microclimates demanded precision. Too close to the surface, and heat or cold could penetrate. Too deep, and oxygen levels could drop dangerously. Fossilized burrows show careful design, with branching tunnels, multiple entrances, and chambers for nesting or escape. Life in these conditions was a continuous balance between protection and exposure, an intricate dance dictated by the physical properties of the soil and the demands of survival. Predation persisted even underground. Certain reptiles and arthropods evolved the ability to navigate tunnels in search of prey, while some species relied on chemical or vibration detection to hunt in darkness. Prey species, in turn, developed counter-adaptations such as rapid digging, sensory awareness, and physical defenses like armored exoskeletons or burrowing speed. The subterranean world was a shadowy mirror of the surface, with its own hierarchies, competitive pressures, and evolutionary innovations that rivaled those of open deserts. Fossilized evidence of underground life offers glimpses of the remarkable complexity of these ecosystems. Imprints of claws, teeth marks, and excrement reveal interactions between species, indicating both competition and coexistence. Some tunnels were shared by multiple species, suggesting a form of temporary ecological cooperation, while others were fiercely defended by solitary inhabitants. The hidden desert beneath the sand was not a secondary environment. It was a fully realized ecosystem with intricate food webs and survival strategies as sophisticated as those on the surface. Microbial life also played an indispensable role in subterranean deserts. Bacteria and fungi decomposed organic matter, cycling nutrients and sustaining invertebrates and small vertebrates. In some regions, microbial mats preserved moisture and created microenvironments that could sustain life through prolonged droughts. Fossilized traces of microbial activity show patterns of interaction with roots, burrows, and decaying matter, highlighting the interdependence of life in these extreme habitats. Even in darkness, life was abundant, dynamic, and finely tuned to the environmental pressures of the desert. The underground world was also a crucible of evolution. Isolated from surface extremes, yet still subject to ecological pressures, subterranean species developed adaptations that would define entire lineages. Limb morphology, sensory organs, reproductive strategies, and metabolic systems evolved in response to the constraints of life beneath the sand. Fossil evidence captures these innovations, demonstrating that evolutionary experimentation in deserts occurred not only on the surface under the blazing sun, but also in hidden networks of tunnels where darkness, scarcity, and competition dictated survival, desert flora, and the fight for water. In prehistoric deserts, the battle for water was not only fought by animals, but by plants themselves, which became master survivalists in a landscape defined by scarcity. Far from being passive, vegetation shaped ecosystems and influenced every other form of life, from tiny invertebrates to massive herbivorous reptiles. Root systems penetrated deep beneath the shifting sands, seeking hidden aquifers, while some plants developed wide, shallow roots to capture every fleeting drop from rare desert storms. Every adaptation, from leaf morphology to reproductive timing, reflected the pressures of living in a world where water was both lifeline and weapon. Plants developed astonishing physical adaptations to withstand heat and conserve moisture. Thick, waxy leaves reflected the sun's rays, minimizing water loss, while spines and hairs reduced airflow and evaporation from the leaf surface. Some species stored water in swollen stems, tubers, or root crowns, acting as miniature reservoirs for survival during prolonged droughts. Others evolved rapid life cycles, germinating, flowering, and seeding within a matter of weeks after rainfall. These bursts of activity created sudden oases of life, attracting herbivores and insects alike, and setting off a cascade of survival strategies throughout the desert ecosystem. Competition for water and nutrients created harsh selection pressures. Plants that could tolerate extreme aridity, resist herbivory, or outcompete neighbors thrived, while less adapted species vanished. In some regions, plants grew close together, forming dense clusters that stabilized shifting sands and created localized microclimates. These clusters acted as shelter for smaller creatures, forming miniature ecosystems where insects, reptiles, and amphibians could find refuge and forage. Even in a desert defined by scarcity, plants became architects of survival, structuring life in ways that extended far beyond their immediate needs. Some desert plants developed unique chemical defenses to survive the pressures of predation and environmental stress. Bitter compounds, toxins, and resins discouraged herbivores from feeding, while simultaneously reducing fungal and microbial damage. These defenses influenced herbivore evolution, creating an evolutionary arms race in which plant and consumer co-adapted over millennia. Fossilized leaves and seeds show evidence of this ongoing struggle, from bite marks and feeding traces to preserved chemical residues, illustrating that survival in prehistoric deserts depended on both physical and chemical ingenuity. Water availability dictated behavioral patterns across the desert. Plants synchronized flowering and seeding with rare rainfall, creating predictable bursts of food for herbivores. Insects and small vertebrates timed reproduction to coincide with plant abundance, emerging rapidly to exploit the ephemeral resources before retreating to burrows or dormant states. Even larger herbivores navigated vast distances to access localized patches of vegetation, driven by the rhythms of desert flora. The timing and precision of these interactions highlight a web of interdependence that made deserts far more dynamic and intricate than their barren appearance suggested. Microhabitats around plants were crucial for survival. Shade, accumulated leaf litter, and root networks created localized cooling effects, trapping moisture and providing refuge for small animals. Burrows dug near vegetation offered access to both food and protection, allowing species to exploit the scarce resources of the desert with relative safety. Fossilized evidence suggests that some early reptiles and amphibians clustered around plant clusters during the hottest parts of the day, indicating behavioral adaptations shaped directly by plant presence. In a world defined by extremes, plants were silent engineers of life, influencing the distribution, behavior, and evolution of countless species. Seasonal flooding created temporary but vital opportunities for desert flora. Intermittent rivers, flash floods, and shallow ponds deposited nutrient-rich sediments, allowing some plants to flourish in brief bursts. These areas became critical hubs for herbivores and predators alike, concentrating activity and increasing the intensity of ecological interactions. Plants adapted to capitalize on these events with rapid growth cycles, seed dispersal mechanisms, and the ability to recover quickly after inundation. These episodic opportunities reinforced the desert's unpredictability while simultaneously shaping evolutionary strategies for both flora and fauna. Desert plants also played a role in stabilizing landscapes. Root networks anchored shifting sands, preventing erosion and protecting fragile soil layers. Over time, these networks influenced dune formation, creating microhabitats with slightly lower temperatures, reduced wind exposure, and higher moisture retention. Small creatures exploited these areas, establishing micro-ecosystems where insects, burrowing reptiles, and early mammals could survive despite the surrounding inhospitable terrain. In this way, plants were not simply surviving, they were reshaping their environment and influencing the evolutionary trajectory of desert life. Some plant species displayed remarkable resilience to fire and drought, traits that became essential in an increasingly arid world. Thick bark, underground storage organs, and rapid regenerative capacity allowed them to withstand environmental extremes that would have destroyed less specialized species. Fossilized charcoal deposits indicate that wildfires, ignited by lightning or volcanic activity, periodically swept across prehistoric deserts, creating additional challenges for plant survival and reshaping ecological networks. These disturbances reinforced selective pressures, pushing species toward ever greater specialization and resilience. Desert flora were central to the evolution of herbivores. The scarcity of water and tough, fibrous plant material drove adaptations such as specialized teeth, elongated digestive tracts, and behaviors designed to maximize nutrient extraction. Herbivorous reptiles and early mammals evolved in tandem with these plants, developing the ability to exploit even the most chemically defended or water-poor vegetation. The result was a complex web of interdependence in which plant adaptations directly influenced animal physiology, behavior, and survival strategies, creating an ecosystem finely tuned to the extreme pressures of prehistoric deserts. The great herbivores of the desert. Herbivores in prehistoric deserts were masters of endurance, navigating harsh terrains where water and vegetation were scarce, yet life demanded constant movement and adaptation. Their bodies were built for survival. Long limbs allowed swift travel across shifting sands, while specialized teeth and digestive systems enabled the extraction of maximum nutrients from fibrous, often chemically defended plants. Every behavior, from migratory patterns to feeding strategies, reflected the pressures of life in a landscape defined by extremes, and fossil evidence reveals how intricately these animals were adapted to their harsh environment. Mobility was a key factor in survival. Some desert herbivores were capable of traversing vast distances to locate water or seasonal vegetation, while others relied on deep burrows or shaded microhabitats to escape the intense heat of midday. Fossilized tracks and preserved skeletons suggest herding behaviors in certain species, providing protection from predators and increasing the efficiency of foraging in scattered plant clusters. These movements shaped the desert landscape, influencing seed dispersal, soil structure, and even the behavior of predators that tracked them across the sands. Dietary adaptations were central to survival. Many herbivores developed tough, grinding teeth capable of breaking down fibrous stems, spiny leaves, and resin-laden foliage. Long, complex digestive tracts allowed the slow extraction of nutrients from plants with low water content, enabling survival in regions where fresh food was scarce. Some species evolved symbiotic relationships with gut microbes that enhanced nutrient absorption, reflecting an intricate evolutionary response to the aridity of their environment. The interplay of physiology and ecology ensured that herbivores could endure conditions that would have destroyed less specialized animals. Behavioral adaptations were equally important. Many herbivores adopted nocturnal or crepuscular activity patterns to avoid daytime heat, emerging under cooler skies to feed, drink, and socialize. Seasonal migration allowed populations to exploit transient resources, following the rare rains that brought temporary rivers and flowering plants. Social structures evolved in response to environmental pressures. Some species formed tight-knit herds for protection and cooperative foraging, while solitary species developed stealth and camouflage to reduce competition and predation. Survival required intelligence, memory, and an acute awareness of the desert's rhythms. Water scarcity shaped every aspect of life. Some herbivores could metabolize water from their food, relying on succulent plants or dew-laden surfaces. Others dug small pits or accessed subterranean moisture sources, demonstrating remarkable ingenuity in an environment dominated by heat and desiccation. Fossilized remains indicate that drought-resistant adaptations appeared repeatedly in multiple lineages, reflecting convergent evolution driven by the relentless pressures of desert life. Life was a negotiation between need and opportunity, requiring constant vigilance and resourcefulness. Predation exerted constant influence on herbivore behavior and evolution. Early desert predators, ranging from swift reptiles to burrowing arthropods, forced prey species to develop defensive strategies. Camouflage, armored skin, and keen sensory organs became essential tools for survival. Herding behavior, alarm calls, and rapid escape responses allowed herbivores to navigate the desert while minimizing risk. Every encounter was a high-stakes negotiation between predator and prey, and the evolutionary consequences of these interactions are preserved in skeletal morphology, trackways, and even bite marks on fossilized bones. Reproduction was tightly linked to environmental conditions. Herbivores timed breeding cycles to coincide with the rare availability of food and water, ensuring that offspring had the highest chance of survival. Some species laid eggs or gave birth in protected burrows, while others developed parental care strategies to safeguard young during harsh periods. Juveniles exhibited rapid growth rates to withstand predation and environmental stress, highlighting the influence of desert conditions on life history strategies. Fossil evidence shows that survival required coordination between physiology, behavior, and environmental awareness. Herbivores also shaped their own ecosystems. Grazing controlled vegetation growth, influencing plant community composition and facilitating nutrient cycling. Movement across deserts dispersed seeds and altered soil properties, creating microhabitats for other species. These ecological roles extended beyond immediate survival, creating a dynamic interaction between herbivores, predators, and plants that reinforced the structure of prehistoric desert ecosystems. Fossils preserve these interactions through bite marks, dung deposits, and evidence of trampling on soil surfaces, revealing the profound impact of herbivores on their environment. Adaptations to extreme heat included physiological and behavioral traits that minimized water loss. Some species developed efficient kidneys, allowing conservation of fluids, while others utilized nocturnal or underground shelters to reduce exposure. Behavioral thermoregulation, such as seeking shade, burrowing, or altering activity patterns, was critical for maintaining homeostasis. These combined strategies allowed herbivores to persist in landscapes that challenged nearly every aspect of physiology, demonstrating the remarkable flexibility and resilience of life under environmental stress. Social behaviors influence survival and evolution. Communication through visual signals, vocalizations, or scent markings enabled coordination within herds, facilitated reproductive opportunities, and helped avoid predators. Territoriality and resource competition shaped group structures, while cooperative behaviors enhanced survival rates in a hostile environment. Fossil evidence indicates that these social adaptations were as important as physical traits, highlighting the intricate interplay between behavior, ecology, and survival in prehistoric deserts. Survival strategies in a hostile climate. Prehistoric deserts were arenas of relentless environmental pressure, where survival depended on a combination of physical adaptation, behavioral ingenuity, and ecological awareness. Extreme temperatures, scarce water, and unpredictable storms demanded that every organism develop strategies to endure conditions that could kill within hours. Nocturnal activity, burrowing, and seasonal migration were essential behaviors, allowing animals to escape the blistering heat of the day, exploit fleeting resources, and avoid the peaks of predator activity. Fossilized remains reveal these strategies in skeletal adaptations, limb morphology, and the distribution of tracks across ancient sand plains. Physiological adaptations were equally remarkable. Reptiles evolved highly efficient kidneys to conserve water. Amphibians developed thickened skin to prevent desiccation, and some mammals relied on fat-storing tails or specialized metabolic pathways to endure prolonged droughts. The demands of the desert also shaped circulatory and thermoregulatory systems, with some species capable of enduring extreme internal temperature fluctuations that would have been lethal elsewhere. Every organ, tissue, and behavior was a response to environmental pressures, a testament to the relentless sculpting force of the desert. Burrowing was one of the most critical survival strategies. Underground tunnels offered insulation from extreme temperatures, protection from predators, and access to residual moisture. Fossilized burrows suggest elaborate networks with branching chambers and multiple entrances, designed for safety, thermoregulation, and resource storage. Some species cohabited these spaces, while others maintained exclusive territories, revealing complex social and ecological dynamics hidden beneath the sand. Burrowing also facilitated reproductive strategies, providing safe sites for nesting and offspring protection. Nocturnal behavior emerged as a key adaptation. By avoiding the scorching heat of midday, animals reduced water loss and exposure to predators, taking advantage of cooler nighttime temperatures to hunt, forage, or migrate. Sensory organs evolved to enhance nighttime perception. Larger eyes, heightened olfaction, and vibration-sensitive appendages allowed creatures to navigate darkness with precision. Fossilized evidence of eye size and inner ear structures indicates that many species were increasingly specialized for life under the cover of night, demonstrating the intimate link between behavior and anatomy in desert survival. Seasonal migration was another critical survival mechanism. Prehistoric deserts were characterized by transient water sources, erratic vegetation blooms, and sporadic climatic events, and species capable of moving across large distances could exploit these fleeting resources. Tracks preserved in sedimentary deposits illustrate the scale and precision of these movements, showing herds traveling in predictable patterns to optimize access to food and water. Migration also influenced reproductive timing, predator-prey interactions, and the distribution of plant species, revealing a complex, interconnected ecological system that depended on mobility and environmental awareness. Dietary flexibility was essential in a landscape dominated by scarcity. Herbivores adapted to consume tough, fibrous plants, while some species evolved the ability to metabolize water from vegetation. Carnivores expanded diets to include both prey and carrion, and many omnivorous species adjusted feeding strategies to capitalize on seasonal abundance. Fossilized tooth wear, jaw morphology, and gut contents indicate that flexibility in food sources was a critical factor in long-term survival, and species unable to adapt to these constraints faced rapid extinction. Camouflage and protective coloration were vital for both predator and prey. In the ochre and rust-colored sands, patterns evolved to break outlines, mirror surrounding vegetation, or blend seamlessly with rock and soil. Fossilized skin impressions, scales, and inferred coloration reveal a diversity of strategies, showing that visual deception was a fundamental component of desert survival. In many cases, these adaptations were coupled with behavioral strategies such as stillness, burrowing, or nocturnal activity, enhancing the effectiveness of camouflage. Reproductive strategies were intricately tied to environmental pressures. Species timed breeding to coincide with brief periods of water and food availability, ensuring that young had sufficient resources to survive. Some reptiles laid eggs in burrows, relying on thermal insulation and moisture retention, while others exhibited early forms of parental care. Rapid growth rates in juveniles were common, reflecting the constant threat of predation and environmental stress. Fossilized nests, eggs, and juvenile remains provide evidence of these adaptive strategies and reveal a continuous negotiation between reproduction and survival. Microhabitats created by vegetation, rocks, and soil formations were critical refuges. Shade from sparse plants, depressions in sand, and hidden crevices provided protection from extreme temperatures, predators, and wind-blown sand. These microhabitats allowed smaller organisms to exploit localized resources, forming miniature ecosystems that mirrored the larger desert environment. Fossil evidence of concentrated animal remains in these areas suggests that organisms actively sought out and relied upon these microenvironments to persist. Social behaviors also enhanced survival. Herding, cooperative foraging, and communal burrowing increased the odds of survival in a hostile landscape, while territoriality and signaling helped reduce conflict and resource competition. Fossilized footprints and bone arrangements indicate that social strategies were present in multiple species, providing insight into the behavioral complexity of desert life. In combination with physical and physiological adaptations, these social behaviors formed a multi-layered network of survival strategies that allowed life to endure despite the harshest environmental conditions. Predators and prey in a constant struggle. In the nightmarish landscapes of prehistoric deserts, predators and prey were locked in an endless contest dictated by environmental extremes. Scarce resources amplified competition, forcing both hunter and hunted to develop extraordinary adaptations. Predators evolved keen senses to detect movement, vibrations, and chemical cues across vast, open sands, while prey species developed acute awareness and defensive strategies to survive the constant threat of predation. Fossilized tracks and skeletal remains reveal encounters frozen in time, hinting at the lethal precision and high stakes of this struggle. Predators exploited every facet of the desert environment. Sandstorms could mask movement, providing cover for ambushes, while sudden rains could concentrate prey in ephemeral pools, creating lethal hunting grounds. Some predators became specialists in detecting the subtle tremors of prey beneath shifting dunes, using vibration-sensitive appendages to strike with precision. Others relied on camouflage and patient ambush tactics, blending seamlessly with the sand or sparse vegetation. Each hunting strategy was a product of the desert's unpredictability, demanding ingenuity, patience, and physical specialization. Prey species, in turn, evolved sophisticated defense mechanisms. Rapid locomotion, protective exoskeletons, armored hides, and cryptic coloration allowed them to evade capture, while behavioral adaptations, including herd formation, burrow utilization, and nocturnal activity, minimized exposure to predation. Fossil evidence, including tooth marks, healed injuries, and trackways, demonstrates the effectiveness of these strategies and illustrates a continuous cycle of adaptation in which predator and prey co-evolved in response to one another's pressures. Hunting was not limited to large predators. Invertebrates, including scorpions, centipedes, and beetles, were formidable predators themselves, exploiting prey hidden beneath sand or vegetation. These arthropods were highly adapted to extreme conditions, with low metabolic rates, protective exoskeletons, and sensory systems capable of detecting vibrations or chemical traces of nearby organisms. Fossilized remains indicate some reached astonishing sizes, emphasizing the evolutionary pressures that allowed survival in an environment dominated by scarcity and extremes. Predator-prey interactions also influenced reproductive strategies. Herbivores and smaller prey species often synchronized breeding with periods of food and water abundance to maximize juvenile survival. Predators, in turn, timed reproductive cycles to coincide with peaks in prey availability, ensuring that offspring had access to sufficient nourishment. Fossilized nests, eggs, and juvenile skeletons reveal these patterns and highlight the intimate connection between life history strategies and environmental pressures in deserts. Competition among predators was intense. Scarce prey forced apex hunters, mid-level predators, and opportunistic scavengers to adopt unique niches and avoid direct confrontation whenever possible. Territorial behaviors, stealth, and specialized hunting techniques allowed multiple predator species to coexist in the same desert environment. Fossilized trackways and skeletal remains indicate that these interactions were not only frequent but often violent, shaping physical adaptations such as claw strength, jaw morphology, and sensory specialization across multiple lineages. Predation pressures also drove ecological innovation. Some predators became partially nocturnal to avoid the heat of day, while prey species shifted activity patterns in response, creating a complex temporal dynamic in which survival depended on accurate environmental awareness. Other adaptations included burrow-based hunting, camouflage, and social strategies, all of which reduced risk while maximizing feeding efficiency. Fossilized evidence demonstrates that these strategies were refined over millions of years, producing species with highly specialized behaviors tailored to the harsh realities of desert life. Extreme temperatures influenced predator-prey dynamics as well. Daytime heat forced many species underground or into shaded microhabitats, concentrating interactions in predictable areas. Nocturnal predators and prey used cooler conditions to hunt or forage, relying on acute sensory adaptations to detect one another in near darkness. These temperature-driven patterns dictated activity, rhythms, social behaviors, and ecological interactions, emphasizing the profound influence of environmental extremes on desert life. Ephemeral water sources created both opportunities and dangers. Temporary rivers, ponds, and floodplains attracted concentrations of herbivores, which in turn drew predators in search of easy prey. These brief lifelines became arenas of intense competition and lethal encounters, forcing both predator and prey to navigate unpredictable risks. Fossilized sedimentary layers capture these interactions, preserving footprints, tracks, and evidence of predation that illustrate the intricate dance between opportunity, danger, and survival. The ongoing struggle between predator and prey was a powerful driver of evolutionary change. Each adaptation by one group prompted counter-adaptations in the other, producing a dynamic feedback loop that shaped morphology, behavior, and physiology. Camouflage, speed, burrowing, nocturnal activity, and specialized sensory systems were all products of this relentless selective pressure. Fossil evidence preserves the story of this evolutionary arms race, revealing the extraordinary ingenuity and resilience of life in deserts where survival demanded constant vigilance, strategy, and adaptation. Extreme weather and its consequences. Prehistoric deserts were shaped as much by climate as by the creatures that inhabited them, and extreme weather events dictated the rhythms of life. Torrential storms could sweep across vast dunes, creating sudden floods that reshaped riverbeds and temporarily submerged entire ecosystems. These flash floods were both destructive and transformative, forcing animals to flee, plants to endure sudden inundation, and the landscape itself to be permanently altered. Fossilized sedimentary layers reveal the scale and intensity of these events, preserving impressions of tracks, burrows, and plant debris that testify to the desert's violent power. Sandstorms were another defining feature, whipping grains across vast distances and creating near impenetrable clouds of dust. The abrasive particles eroded exposed skin, corroded delicate exoskeletons, and buried small organisms beneath meters of shifting sand. Life adapted with remarkable ingenuity. Burrowing became essential, protective scales and shells evolved, and behaviors shifted to anticipate the desert's most violent displays. Fossilized remains indicate that some species even developed reinforced skeletal structures capable of withstanding the abrasive force of constant sand exposure. Temperature extremes were equally unforgiving. Daytime heat could soar to lethal levels, while nights dropped below freezing, requiring organisms to possess extraordinary thermoregulatory adaptations. Reptiles basked in early morning light to raise body temperatures, while nocturnal predators emerged under the cooling skies to hunt. Burrowing species exploited stable underground temperatures, and plants adapted leaf structures, wax coatings, and water storage to endure both heat and frost. Life in these deserts was a constant negotiation with energy balance, hydration, and metabolic efficiency. Intermittent rainfall created ephemeral rivers and ponds, offering rare opportunities for life to flourish. These brief windows of abundance brought intense activity as herbivores, predators, and invertebrates converged on temporary water sources. Flash floods followed closely behind, sweeping away unprepared organisms and depositing nutrient-rich sediments that transformed the landscape. These oscillating extremes drove evolutionary innovation, favoring species capable of rapid adaptation, opportunistic feeding, and reproductive timing that aligned with unpredictable conditions. Wind played a critical role in shaping the desert's ecology. Strong gusts moved sand across plains, creating dunes that could rise hundreds of meters and shift rapidly, erasing tracks, covering vegetation, and altering the habitat. Plants anchored themselves in clusters to stabilize the soil, while animals adapted limb morphology, gait, and digging behaviors to traverse unstable surfaces. Fossilized trackways reveal intricate patterns of movement across these ever-changing landscapes, showing how organisms responded to environmental instability with remarkable ingenuity. Desert storms created ecological bottlenecks that amplified competition. When rainfall temporarily revived vegetation, herbivores congregated in dense areas, increasing the likelihood of predation. Predators exploited these aggregations, while prey evolved heightened vigilance, group behaviors, and rapid feeding strategies. These short-lived, intense interactions shaped evolutionary pressures across multiple species simultaneously, demonstrating that survival depended not just on adaptation to extremes, but on anticipating and responding to rapid environmental change. Sandstorms also influenced reproductive strategies. Burrow-nesting animals timed egg-laying or birthing to avoid peak storm seasons, while plants evolved seeds capable of surviving burial beneath sand or dispersal by wind. Fossilized seeds and eggs show evidence of dormancy, resistance to abrasion, and the ability to germinate or hatch when conditions improved. These adaptations ensured continuity of life despite the relentless and unpredictable force of desert weather. Lightning and fire were occasional, yet dramatic forces in desert ecosystems. Rare storms produced lightning strikes that ignited dry vegetation, creating wildfires that swept across dunes and plains. Plants adapted with thick bark, underground storage organs, and rapid regenerative growth, while animals either fled, burrowed, or timed reproductive cycles to avoid high-risk periods. Fossil charcoal deposits and burn scars provide evidence of these ancient events, illustrating the transformative impact of episodic catastrophes on desert life. Temperature, water availability, and wind interacted to create microhabitats essential for survival. Depressions, shaded areas, and underground cavities offered refuge from extreme conditions, while slight variations in soil moisture allowed pockets of vegetation to thrive. These microhabitats concentrated activity, providing resources for herbivores, shelter for small reptiles, and hunting grounds for predators. Fossil evidence suggests that even minor environmental variations could determine life or death in these harsh landscapes. The combination of extreme weather events, unpredictable water availability, and harsh thermal conditions created a crucible for evolutionary innovation. Species that could anticipate, withstand, and exploit these conditions persisted, while those unable to respond rapidly were eliminated. Fossilized trackways, burrows, and sedimentary evidence reveal a world in constant flux, where survival demanded not only physical adaptations, but behavioral ingenuity and an intimate understanding of the desert's volatile climate, the nighttime world of the desert. As the sun dipped below the horizon, prehistoric deserts transformed into a realm of shadows where the rules of survival shifted dramatically. Nocturnal activity dominated the landscape, and creatures adapted to low light conditions emerged to exploit the cover of darkness. Predators hunted with heightened senses, detecting faint vibrations, chemical traces, and subtle movements, while prey species relied on stealth, acute sensory perception, and coordinated behaviors to avoid becoming meals. The desert, in this nocturnal period, was a theatre of tension, adaptation, and intricate survival strategies that played out beneath the moonless sky. Temperature drops drove the nocturnal rhythms of life. The intense heat of the day forced most creatures into burrows, shaded depressions, or beneath vegetation, concentrating activity under cooler skies. Nocturnal reptiles and small mammals emerged, searching for food and water, while predators calibrated their hunting patterns to the predictable movements of prey. Fossilized burrows and trackways show evidence of these nocturnal migrations, revealing the precision and timing required for survival in an environment defined by extremes. Sensory adaptations were essential in darkness. Large eyes evolved in many reptiles and amphibians to capture the faintest light, while olfactory systems and vibration-sensitive organs became vital tools for detecting prey and avoiding danger. Arthropods, particularly scorpions and centipedes, relied on highly specialized appendages to perceive minute changes in sand or substrate vibrations, creating a shadow ecosystem as active and dangerous as the daytime world. These adaptations demonstrate the remarkable evolutionary solutions that nocturnal life demanded in prehistoric deserts. Nocturnal herbivores navigated the landscape with caution, feeding on vegetation that retained moisture or flowered at night. These species timed their movements to avoid predation while maximizing access to scarce resources. Fossilized tracks suggest coordinated movement patterns, indicating early forms of social behavior or herd strategies designed to increase survival odds. The desert night, while cooler, was no less perilous, demanding constant vigilance and adaptability. Predation intensified during nighttime hours, with stealth and strategy becoming paramount. Predators employed ambush tactics, using darkness as camouflage, while prey species developed behaviors to minimize detection, including stillness, burrow usage, and rapid escape responses. Fossilized evidence of predation, including bite marks and skeletal trauma, illustrates the effectiveness of these nocturnal strategies and the relentless pressure exerted on all desert inhabitants. The scarcity of water remained a central challenge. Many species relied on dew accumulation, moisture in plant tissues, or subterranean reservoirs, timing activity to maximize efficiency. Specialized kidneys, water-storing tissues, and metabolic adaptations allowed organisms to persist during periods of extreme dryness. Even in the night, the desert imposed strict limits on hydration, forcing species to optimize every movement, foraging session, and interaction to balance energy and fluid requirements. Invertebrates were particularly active at night. Scorpions, nocturnal beetles, and centipedes exploited the cover of darkness to hunt and avoid desiccation. Fossilized exoskeletons and preserved trackways reveal a diversity of strategies, from ambush predation to scavenging, that mirrored the behaviors of larger vertebrates. These nocturnal invertebrates were critical players in the desert ecosystem, controlling prey populations, recycling nutrients, and shaping the microhabitats they inhabited. Nocturnal plants played a subtle but crucial role. Some flowers opened exclusively at night, attracting nocturnal pollinators such as insects and small mammals. Leaf movements, scent emissions, and moisture retention strategies were all adaptations designed to maximize survival and reproduction under cool, dark conditions. Fossilized pollen grains and flower imprints indicate these rhythms were well established, creating nightly interactions that shaped entire food webs in the desert. Reproduction was also influenced by nocturnal patterns. Breeding, egg-laying, and offspring care often coincided with cooler periods, reducing the risk of desiccation and predation. Fossil evidence of nests, burrows, and juvenile remains suggests that nighttime offered a strategic window for species to reproduce safely while minimizing environmental stress. Timing, behavior, and adaptation were inseparable in ensuring the continuation of life in these deserts. The desert night emphasized sensory awareness, stealth, and energy conservation. Each species developed strategies tailored to the unique challenges of darkness. Predators honed detection skills, prey enhanced evasion tactics, and all organisms balanced the dual pressures of temperature, regulation, and resource acquisition. Fossilized evidence demonstrates that nocturnal adaptation was as sophisticated and critical as any survival strategy used during the day, revealing a shadow ecosystem as complex and dynamic as the sunlit world of dunes and dunescapes. Fossils as windows to desert life. The prehistoric deserts of Earth may seem inhospitable to modern eyes, yet the fossil record reveals a world teeming with adaptation, struggle, and survival. Fossils preserved in sandstones, mudflats, and ancient riverbeds provide crucial insights into the lives of creatures that once roamed these extreme landscapes. Tracks, burrows, skeletal remains, and even fossilized excrement reveal patterns of behavior, feeding strategies, and interactions between species. Each imprint is a snapshot of survival, a moment frozen in stone that tells a story of life in one of the harshest ecosystems on the planet. Tracks are among the most revealing fossils. Footprints preserved in hardened sand indicate movement patterns, hunting strategies, and even herd behavior. Long chains of footprints suggest coordinated migration, while scattered prints reveal predation attempts and rapid flight. Fossilized trackways also provide clues about limb structure, gait, and weight distribution, offering a window into the physical capabilities and limitations of prehistoric desert species. They show how creatures navigated dunes, mudflats, and rocky outcrops, revealing a sophisticated understanding of their environment encoded in their movements. Burrows and tunnels reveal the hidden life beneath the desert surface. These subterranean structures, often complex and multi-chambered, served as refuges from heat, predators, and drought. Fossilized burrows show evidence of repeated use, branching patterns, and even cohabitation between species, suggesting early forms of social or ecological interaction. Analysis of these structures provides insights into thermoregulation, reproductive behavior, and survival strategies, highlighting the three-dimensional complexity of desert ecosystems where much of the action occurred out of sight. Skeletal remains offer another critical perspective. Bone structure, limb morphology, and dentition reveal dietary preferences, locomotion, and predator-prey dynamics. Wear patterns on teeth indicate the type of vegetation consumed, while joint and limb adaptations reflect strategies for navigating shifting sands, climbing dunes, or burrowing underground. Fossilized bones often carry evidence of predation, such as bite marks or healed injuries, illustrating the constant interplay between survival and threat in the desert. Fossilized excrement, or coprolites, provides unique insights into diet, digestion, and ecological interactions. Analysis of these specimens reveals plant types consumed by herbivores, prey items eaten by carnivores, and even symbiotic microbial activity within digestive tracts. Coprolites also indicate seasonal feeding patterns, mobility, and water consumption strategies, offering a rare glimpse into the internal processes of prehistoric organisms. Together with tracks and bones, these fossils reconstruct a detailed picture of the daily life, diet, and behavior of desert inhabitants. Pollen and plant fossils reveal the vegetation that structured desert ecosystems. Leaves, seeds, and stems preserved in sedimentary deposits indicate which species thrived, how they adapted to aridity, and how they interacted with herbivores and pollinators. Fossilized root systems demonstrate how plants stabilized shifting sands and created microhabitats for other organisms. By examining plant fossils alongside animal remains, scientists can reconstruct entire food webs, showing how flora and fauna coexisted in a delicate balance shaped by scarcity, heat, and predation. Sedimentary layers themselves tell a story of environmental change. Dunes, mudflats, river deposits, and evaporite layers reveal periods of drought, flood, and shifting climates. Fossil distribution within these layers indicates migration patterns, population densities, and localized extinctions. These geological contexts provide the backdrop against which life unfolded, showing how species adapted not just to immediate threats, but to long-term environmental fluctuations that shaped the evolution of desert ecosystems. Trace fossils, including feeding marks, burrowing impressions, and scratch patterns, reveal behavior otherwise invisible in skeletal remains. Herbivores left telltale bite marks on plants. Predators left claw and tooth impressions, and invertebrates left intricate tracks on mud surfaces. These traces document interactions, competition, and ecological niches, highlighting the ingenuity and flexibility required for survival in extreme conditions. They allow scientists to reconstruct not only who lived in prehistoric deserts, but how they behaved, hunted, fed, and avoided danger. Fossils also illuminate evolutionary pressures unique to deserts. Many traits observed in skeletal remains, burrows, and tracks such as limb specialization, water conservation adaptations, and burrowing capabilities reflect responses to environmental extremes rather than predation alone. Convergent evolution is evident as unrelated species developed similar strategies for coping with heat, drought, and scarce resources. Fossils preserve the long-term impact of these pressures, showing how deserts served as crucibles of innovation and adaptation. Together, fossils act as windows into a world lost to time. They reveal a dynamic, interconnected ecosystem where survival depended on the integration of behavior, physiology, and environmental awareness. From tracks and burrows to bones and coprolites, the evidence points to an ancient desert teeming with life, innovation, and struggle. A world where the forces of nature tested every adaptation and survival strategy, shaping species in ways that echo through evolutionary history. Adaptation and extinction. Prehistoric deserts were both a crucible of adaptation and a theatre of extinction, where survival demanded extraordinary resilience and failure was unforgiving. Species evolved under relentless environmental pressures, developing traits that allowed them to endure heat, drought, predation, and scarce resources. Limbs elongated for long-distance travel across shifting sands, metabolic adaptations conserved water, and sensory organs became finely tuned to detect prey or predators over vast distances. Every adaptation was a response to the desert's extremes, yet even the most specialized species faced constant threats from climate shifts, competition, and catastrophic events. Extinction was a frequent outcome in deserts, driven by a combination of resource scarcity and environmental volatility. Prolonged droughts could decimate populations, while sudden floods or sandstorms destroyed habitats. Fossil records reveal abrupt disappearances of species, indicating the fragility of life in these ecosystems. Some species that once thrived across vast desert expanses vanished entirely, leaving traces only in fossilized bones, burrows, and tracks. These extinctions highlight the high stakes of survival, where adaptation was necessary but never sufficient. Survival strategies often determine the difference between persistence and extinction. Species that could exploit microhabitats, regulate body temperature, and conserve water had distinct advantages. Burrowing, nocturnal activity, and dietary flexibility allowed animals to endure periods when surface conditions became lethal. Plants evolved deep or widespread roots, water storage organs, and rapid reproductive cycles to cope with unpredictable rainfall. Fossil evidence shows repeated convergence of these traits across unrelated lineages, revealing the powerful selective pressures imposed by deserts. Predation and competition further amplified extinction pressures. When resources dwindled, competition among herbivores intensified, forcing some species to migrate, alter diets, or face starvation. Predators, in turn, relied on successful hunting, and failure to adapt to scarcity or environmental shifts could lead to collapse. Fossilized tooth marks, bite scars, and predator-prey ratios indicate periods of extreme pressure, where small changes in climate or resource availability could ripple through ecosystems with catastrophic effects. Climate change played a central role in shaping desert evolution. Shifts in rainfall patterns, temperature fluctuations, and the spread of arid conditions forced populations to adapt quickly or face disappearance. Some species migrated to more hospitable areas, while others evolved new physiological or behavioral traits to survive. Fossil sediment layers reveal alternating periods of abundance and scarcity, showing how deserts were dynamic landscapes that constantly tested the limits of adaptation and resilience. Microhabitat specialization was a key survival mechanism. Burrows, shaded depressions, and localized vegetation clusters provided refuge during extreme heat, storms, and predation events. Species that could exploit these refuges persisted longer, while those unable to access safe spaces were more likely to vanish. Fossilized burrows, dens, and trackways demonstrate how these microhabitats functioned as lifelines, creating small-scale refuges that allowed life to endure in a hostile environment. Extinction events were often selective, favoring species with flexibility, resilience, and ecological awareness. Highly specialized species thrived under specific conditions, but were vulnerable to sudden environmental shifts. Conversely, generalist species, capable of exploiting multiple resources or habitats, showed greater longevity. Fossil evidence reflects these patterns, revealing which traits enhanced survival and which vulnerabilities led to disappearance, highlighting the delicate balance between adaptation and ecological stability in deserts. Evolutionary pressure also drove remarkable innovation. Species evolved complex limb structures for sand navigation, enhanced sensory organs for detecting predators or prey, and metabolic adaptations for water conservation. Behavioral innovations, such as nocturnal activity, migration, and burrow construction, complemented physical adaptations, creating multidimensional strategies for survival. Fossilized skeletons, burrows, and trackways provide tangible evidence of these evolutionary experiments, illustrating the profound influence of desert conditions on shaping life over millennia. Plants were equally affected by adaptation and extinction pressures. Drought-resistant species, with water storage organs, thickened leaves, and rapid reproductive cycles, outcompeted others, while species unable to withstand prolonged aridity disappeared. Fossilized pollen, seeds, and stems indicate shifts in plant communities over time, reflecting the dynamic interplay between climate, herbivory, and competition. These changes had cascading effects on herbivores, predators, and the structure of entire ecosystems, showing the interconnected nature of desert life. The cycles of adaptation and extinction created a continually evolving desert landscape. Life was in a constant state of flux, with species rising, evolving, and sometimes disappearing as conditions changed. Fossil evidence captures these dynamics, revealing not only the resilience of life, but also the harsh reality that survival was never guaranteed. Deserts, in their extremes, acted as both crucibles and graveyards, testing the ingenuity, endurance, and adaptability of every organism that called them home. Desert ecosystems as evolutionary laboratories. Prehistoric deserts were not simply barren wastelands, they were arenas of relentless experimentation where evolution was tested to its limits. Harsh climates, scarce water, shifting sands, and extreme temperature fluctuations created conditions that favored innovation, adaptation, and resilience. Every organism, from the tiniest invertebrate to the largest herbivore, faced selective pressures that shaped morphology, physiology, and behavior. Fossilized tracks, burrows, and skeletal remains reveal a world in which life continuously evolved strategies to exploit, survive, and thrive in one of Earth's most demanding environments. Plant life played a foundational role in structuring desert ecosystems. Specialized root systems stabilized shifting dunes and accessed hidden water reserves, while leaves, stems, and storage organs evolved to conserve moisture. Plant clusters created microhabitats, offering shade, food, and shelter for small animals, insects, and burrowing species. Fossilized pollen, seeds, and leaf impressions illustrate the diversity of vegetation and highlight how even the harshest deserts supported intricate networks of life, with plants acting as both resource and architect of survival. Herbivores, in turn, adapted to the extremes imposed by desert plants and environmental scarcity. Limb morphology allowed efficient travel across dunes, teeth adapted to grind tough, fibrous vegetation, and digestive systems evolved to maximize nutrient extraction and water retention. Seasonal and nocturnal behavior allowed animals to exploit rare opportunities while avoiding predators and environmental extremes. Fossilized bones, tooth wear, and trackways provide evidence of these adaptations, revealing how herbivores became both consumers and engineers of their ecosystems, influencing vegetation patterns and soil structure. Predators evolved alongside their prey, creating a dynamic evolutionary arms race. Camouflage, sensory specialization, speed, and stealth were honed under relentless pressure, while prey species developed escape behaviors, herd dynamics, and defensive structures. Fossilized injuries, bite marks, and skeletal adaptations capture this interplay, showing how predator-prey interactions drove innovation and survival strategies over millions of years. Even small arthropods participated in this evolutionary contest, displaying predatory behaviors, protective exoskeletons, and intricate burrowing strategies. Burrowing behavior emerged as a critical adaptation across multiple lineages. Tunnels offered insulation from extreme heat, protection from predators, and access to moisture, creating a hidden dimension of desert life. Some burrows were elaborate networks with branching chambers and multiple entrances, serving as refuges, hunting grounds, and nesting sites. Fossilized burrows reveal evidence of repeated use and, in some cases, cohabitation, suggesting early forms of ecological interaction and survival cooperation. These underground ecosystems were laboratories of adaptation, where behavior and morphology converged to meet environmental challenges. Extreme weather events further shaped evolution. Flash floods, sandstorms, and temperature extremes created selective pressures that tested every organism's capacity to survive. Species capable of rapid response, environmental anticipation, and efficient resource utilization persisted, while less adaptable species vanished. Fossil layers record repeated cycles of abundance and scarcity, capturing moments in which species either adapted to changing conditions or disappeared. Deserts functioned as dynamic evolutionary engines, continually reshaping life through relentless environmental trial and error. Nocturnal and crepuscular behaviors evolved as responses to thermal extremes and predation pressures, Darkness provided refuge, yet required enhanced sensory capabilities. Large eyes, vibration-sensitive appendages, and keen olfactory systems allowed nocturnal animals to navigate, hunt, and forage effectively. Fossilized skeletal features and trackways indicate a remarkable degree of specialization, revealing how life adapted to temporal niches as effectively as to physical ones. The desert night was as biologically significant as the day, serving as another experimental stage for evolutionary innovation. Water scarcity drove convergent evolution across plants and animals. Succulent stems, water-storing tissues, metabolic adaptations, and behavioral strategies evolved repeatedly in unrelated lineages. These adaptations allowed organisms to endure prolonged droughts and exploit ephemeral resources efficiently. Fossilized tissues, root impressions, and anatomical adaptations provide clear evidence of repeated innovation, illustrating how the desert's relentless pressures produced solutions that were both diverse and remarkably similar across species. Extinction events were equally influential in shaping desert ecosystems. Harsh conditions, predation, and competition eliminated species unable to adapt, opening ecological niches for new forms to emerge. Fossil evidence documents the disappearance of once abundant species and the emergence of new lineages, highlighting the dual role of deserts as both crucibles of innovation and arenas of selective mortality. Extinction acted as a natural reset, reinforcing evolutionary pressures and accelerating the development of traits that allowed species to persist under extreme conditions. The interplay of adaptation, predation, competition, and environmental stress created a complex web of life. Fossil records reveal that prehistoric deserts were not simple or static. They were dynamic ecosystems with intricate relationships between flora, fauna, and the physical environment. Evolution was continuous, rapid, and multidimensional, producing species that were highly specialized, behaviorally sophisticated, and resilient. Each organism, whether predator, prey, or plant, participated in an ongoing experiment of survival, demonstrating the extraordinary capacity of life to innovate under extreme pressures. Microhabitats amplified evolutionary opportunity. Small variations in shade, soil composition, moisture, or dune structure created localized refuges where species could persist and interact. Burrows, plant clusters, and rock crevices functioned as laboratories for adaptation, allowing species to test survival strategies on a miniature scale before broader ecological integration. Fossil evidence demonstrates that these microhabitats were essential for maintaining biodiversity and fostering the iterative processes of evolutionary refinement. The deserts of prehistory were living classrooms, showing the interplay of extreme conditions and biological ingenuity. Life evolved through relentless trial and adaptation, producing species with specialized behaviors, physiological innovations, and ecological interactions that reflected the pressures of their environment. Fossils, tracks, burrows, and plant remains provide windows into this experimental landscape, revealing a world where survival demanded ingenuity, resilience, and an intimate connection to a hostile, ever-changing ecosystem. The legacy of prehistoric deserts. Prehistoric deserts were arenas of relentless survival, where life was forced to innovate or vanish, and their legacy continues to shape modern ecosystems. Fossils, trackways, burrows, and sedimentary layers preserve a record of adaptation, competition, and environmental change, revealing the ingenuity of organisms that thrived in conditions of extreme scarcity. These deserts were evolutionary laboratories, producing species with remarkable physiological, behavioral, and ecological adaptations, that left enduring imprints on subsequent landscapes and lineages. The influence of prehistoric deserts extended beyond the organisms themselves, shaping the physical environment in ways that persisted for millions of years. Plant root systems stabilized dunes, prevented erosion, and created microhabitats, while the movements of herbivores and predators redistributed seeds, altered soil composition, and structured the terrain. Fossil evidence shows that these interactions created layered ecosystems where life and environment were interdependent, and survival strategies of individual species had cascading effects across entire habitats. Predator-prey dynamics in deserts were particularly influential. The constant interplay between hunting and evasion drove evolutionary innovation across multiple lineages, producing acute sensory systems, specialized limbs, and behavioral strategies finely tuned to extreme conditions. Fossilized bite marks, skeletal adaptations, and trackways reveal the intensity of these interactions, showing that deserts were arenas of continuous selective pressure that sculpted morphology, behavior, and survival strategies with extraordinary precision. Plant life preserved in the fossil record demonstrates the importance of adaptation to water scarcity and extreme temperatures. Leaves, stems, seeds, and pollen provide insights into reproductive timing, resource use, and ecological interactions. Buried seeds and root impressions indicate strategies for dormancy, water storage, and rapid growth during ephemeral rainfall. These adaptations allowed plants not only to survive, but to structure entire ecosystems, offering food, shelter, and microclimates that supported a diversity of herbivores, invertebrates, and predators. Burrowing behavior left a permanent mark on desert ecosystems. Fossilized tunnels and dens indicate that many species relied on subterranean refuges for thermoregulation, protection, and reproduction. Some burrows show evidence of repeated use, branching complexity, and cohabitation, suggesting that behavioral innovations were critical for persistence. These underground habitats created unique microenvironments, enabling interactions between species, nutrient recycling, and the protection of juveniles from extreme conditions. Extreme weather shaped life and evolution in these deserts. Flash floods, sandstorms, and temperature extremes acted as both destructive forces and evolutionary catalysts. Species that could endure or exploit these events persisted, while others disappeared. Fossilized sedimentary layers preserve the traces of these environmental shifts, capturing moments of survival, displacement, and extinction. Life in prehistoric deserts was not only a story of adaptation, but a narrative of continuous challenge imposed by the planet itself. Nocturnal and crepuscular activity evolved as critical survival strategies, creating complex temporal niches. Fossilized skeletal adaptations, burrow use, and trackways indicate that species timed feeding, reproduction, and migration to avoid heat, predation, or competition. The desert night became as significant as the day in shaping life, providing opportunities for activity, growth, and survival under cooler, safer conditions. These patterns contributed to behavioral complexity that left measurable traces in the fossil record. Water scarcity shaped both physiology and behavior across species. Specialized metabolic adaptations, water-storing tissues, and behavioral strategies like dew harvesting or nocturnal foraging illustrate the ingenuity of desert organisms. Fossilized evidence, including bones, teeth, and plant interactions, reflects these innovations and demonstrates how resource limitation drove convergent evolution across unrelated lineages. The desert's relentless pressure produced solutions that were both highly specialized and remarkably repeatable in diverse taxa. Extinction played a central role in desert legacy. Species unable to adapt to extreme conditions, predation pressures, or resource scarcity were eliminated, while others evolved traits that allowed persistence. Fossil records reveal waves of disappearance and replacement, showing how deserts acted as selective filters. The interplay of adaptation, innovation, and extinction created ecosystems finely tuned to environmental extremes and laid the foundation for future evolutionary pathways. Microhabitats amplified diversity and innovation. Small variations in shade, moisture, and substrate created refuges where species could survive, reproduce, and interact. Burrows, shaded depressions, and plant clusters functioned as evolutionary laboratories, where organisms tested survival strategies on a localized scale. Fossilized remains in these areas demonstrate the critical role of microhabitats in maintaining biodiversity, fostering adaptation, and buffering species from the full intensity of the desert's harsh conditions. The deserts of prehistory were more than landscapes. They were crucibles of survival that molded life with precision and intensity. Fossil evidence, tracks, burrows, and sedimentary layers reveal an ecosystem in continuous flux, where species developed physiological, behavioral, and ecological innovations to endure extreme heat, scarcity, and predation. The legacy of these deserts is embedded in the evolutionary pathways of countless species, illustrating the enduring power of adaptation, resilience, and survival in shaping life across millennia. The final frontiers of prehistoric deserts. Prehistoric deserts represented some of the most demanding ecosystems on Earth, where environmental extremes tested the limits of biology. Organisms were subjected to relentless heat, arid conditions, and scarcity of both food and water, creating selective pressures that shaped evolution in profound ways. Fossilized tracks, burrows, skeletal remains, and plant imprints offer a vivid record of life navigating these challenges, revealing the intricate adaptations and survival strategies that allowed species to persist in seemingly inhospitable landscapes. Mobility was essential for survival. Many herbivores developed long limbs and efficient gaits to traverse dunes and reach distant water sources, while predators adapted to pursue or ambush prey across open terrain. Fossil trackways document these movements, revealing migration patterns, hunting strategies, and interactions between species. In deserts, distance and terrain were as significant a challenge as predation or scarcity, and the ability to move effectively often determined survival. Water conservation drove remarkable physiological innovations. Specialized kidneys, fat-storing tissues, and metabolic adaptations allowed species to endure prolonged droughts, while nocturnal activity and burrowing behaviors minimized water loss. Plants evolved storage organs, waxy coatings, and deep roots to survive harsh conditions, creating the foundation for life in a landscape defined by scarcity. Fossilized evidence highlights repeated convergence of these traits across unrelated lineages, emphasizing the powerful selective pressures deserts imposed on all life forms. Predation shaped morphology, behavior, and social structures. Herbivores developed speed, camouflage, and defensive behaviors to evade predators, while carnivores refined stealth, sensory perception, and hunting tactics to exploit scarce prey. Fossilized skeletal adaptations, bite marks, and trackways reveal an evolutionary arms race, where predator and prey co-evolved in response to environmental extremes and each other's strategies. Every encounter was a high-stakes negotiation, etched into the fossil record with remarkable clarity. Burrowing behavior created a hidden dimension of desert life. Fossilized tunnels, dens, and chambers provided shelter from heat, predators, and sudden storms. Some burrows were elaborate, with branching networks and multiple entrances, while others functioned as temporary refuges during periods of extreme environmental stress. These subterranean habitats supported reproduction, social interaction, and survival, allowing species to endure conditions that would have been lethal on the surface. Nocturnal and crepuscular activity became essential survival strategies. Darkness provided respite from heat and predators, yet required specialized sensory adaptations. Large eyes, vibration-sensitive appendages, and acute olfactory systems allowed nocturnal species to hunt, forage, and navigate efficiently. Fossilized skeletal structures and trackways demonstrate the sophistication of these adaptations and reveal a complex nocturnal ecosystem operating alongside the daytime world. Vegetation shaped desert ecosystems and offered critical resources. Plant clusters stabilized soil, provided shade, and created microhabitats for small animals and insects. Fossilized seeds, stems, and pollen indicate adaptation to aridity, including dormancy, rapid growth during brief rainfall, and water storage strategies. These plants influenced herbivore behavior, predation patterns, and overall ecosystem structure, showing how even in extreme deserts, life created interdependent relationships. Extreme weather events, flash floods, sandstorms, and temperature extremes impose cycles of destruction and renewal. Species capable of surviving or exploiting these events persisted, while others perished. Sedimentary layers and fossilized evidence reveal the intensity of these events and their role in shaping evolution, illustrating how deserts functioned as both selective filters and crucibles for adaptation, driving innovation under relentless pressure. Extinction played a central role in desert evolution. Species unable to adapt to predation, competition, or environmental extremes disappeared, while others evolved traits that allowed persistence. Fossil records show waves of disappearance and replacement, demonstrating how deserts acted as natural laboratories for testing resilience, innovation, and the limits of biological endurance. Extinction was not only an end, but a mechanism that shaped ecosystems, opening opportunities for survivors to diversify and exploit new niches. Microhabitats amplified evolutionary potential. Small variations in moisture, shade, and substrate provided refuges for survival and reproduction. Burrows, shaded depressions, and plant clusters created spaces where organisms could test adaptations, avoid environmental extremes, and maintain populations through periods of scarcity. Fossil evidence demonstrates that these microhabitats were essential for sustaining biodiversity, facilitating the complex interplay of adaptation, competition, and survival. The interplay of adaptation, predation, climate, and extinction created deserts as powerful evolutionary forces. Fossils, tracks, burrows, and plant remains reveal a world of continuous innovation, where life evolved strategies to endure extreme conditions while shaping the landscape itself. Prehistoric deserts were not barren wastelands. They were living laboratories, arenas of competition and cooperation, and crucibles in which the extraordinary ingenuity of life was forged. Every organism, from the smallest arthropod to the largest herbivore, participated in an ongoing experiment in survival, leaving behind a legacy preserved in stone and sediment that continues to inform our understanding of evolution and resilience.